Sorry.
Yeah.
More to the point, imagine how heartbreaking it is for you to be looking after your loved one and you're doing something that you were taught, but it might be 20-year-old advice and it's not like the advice that you've just told us, and you've actually harmed your loved one.
Yep.
Imagine, and living with that, you've actually found out that you've done something.
Oh, people in the industry won't say, mate, that was a shit job. You know, the guy died because... No one will ever say that to you. But they'll look at that and know straight away the person's not going to survive with what you've done.
Yeah. Like
instantly.
The people on my street, they'll put, like, giving this kid a drink.
Yeah.
It's going, what's this all about?
No
like,
way.
You know?
Yeah. And not saying that you're going to win every battle, you know, but I think you've hit the nail on the head. Walking away from an incident like that and knowing that you've just done the right thing. You know, we're playing with the big man on this. You can toss a coin and you can win some and you can lose some. It's really, in some cases, completely out of our hands. But knowing that you've done the right thing and you've had a go is also as important. I think, you know, for people, for loved ones to walk away, you know, thinking that, well, I did the best I could with what I had. And if that's no training, then that's also, you know, the best you've got. But with training, we'll look at recent examples. It can turn a death into a win, you know, in that situation.
Have you ever nearly died?
Oh, mate, no, I don't think I have.
More to the point.
I've had some pretty bad injuries, but I've never been in situations where I've probably thought, oh, I'm close to death.
Okay.
But I've never had an injury sustained that, you know, would. And I also think it's a bit of a double-edged sword when you have a bit of, you know, knowledge can sometimes be damning when you know that you're in trouble.
Wouldn't it? Imagine being the cancer surgeon, getting it yourself, going, wow.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Yeah, brain tumour or something like that.
Yeah,
knowing that
just
the survivability rate on those are just ridiculous.
And come on, other doc, tell me the facts. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. Just like Mr. Johnson. Okay. Yeah, there'd be...
Oh, there's been a lot of... I've sort of researched a lot of information recently on people that know that they're going to die, whether it be a major crisis incident or like cancer, terminal cancer or something like that. And I think a lot of the information around that from people within industry that are close, you know, in palliative care or an ICU, a lot of people will know when they're going to die, even down to the minute or second. I'm going to die in 2 weeks. Wow. You know, they'll actually, I think psychologically there's probably a lot at play there, but the behaviour that happens in those last couple of days or those last weeks, you know, or even in those last moments is quite well documented within industry and
tidying things up and
just I think like getting everything in order, you know, being prepared to go to the next step. And I think a lot of religion probably comes from that originally. Like I'm hopping in line, you know, I'm getting things organised so I can go to the next journey. And a lot of people in that state, whether they're religious or not, will actually start saying those things. There was a reported case of a guy that was on his deathbed and said, I want to hop into my tuxedo because I want to look well prepared for the next step. And he wasn't religious or anything in any way, shape or form, but that's documented right back through history.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Yeah, we all dress ourselves well.
Or just get things in order.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably just a natural human state to want to clean up, you know, loose ends. And
well, there's got to be
the next step.
I don't even think, it's not that I'm not religious, I just don't think that way.
Oh,
I found it very... Sorry?
That guy that died in our first aid course for 7 minutes and 28 seconds... He was dead, clinically dead, because I pulled the SD card out of the defibrillator and he was in VF for 7 minutes and 28 seconds, which is clinically dead while they were doing compressions on him. And the first thing I said to him when I got to the hospital was, mate, did you see anything?
Yeah.
And he was like, nah, I didn't see a thing. There was no lights or anything. And I said, you were there for 7.5 minutes. Was there any family members or anyone? No. And
dreams. Because
it had only been, you know, about a day before, I thought, oh, maybe there's still a few drugs on board. They'll give you a bit of drugs to sedate you and you know, look after you. And he'd been brought out of his, you know, his induced state. And then a couple of weeks later, I called up with him and said, mate, I'm going to ask you that question again because I'm really keen to know. Did you have any kind of after life experience? He's like, nah, not a thing, Scotty, nothing. I just remember blacking out and then waking up. Wow. And I thought, he wasn't religious. I thought, if anyone's going to give me an upfront answer on that one, it's a personal experience. So, it was an interesting, scenario. Not a thing.
Super interesting. Oh, that would frighten
People do
a lot of
report
people.
that. People do report that, though. They have out-of-body experiences. There's a drug in industry called ketamine.
Yeah, which I've
Special
had
K.
in my... I don't know if I told you about this off... I don't know if I've told you about this off mic, but... Yeah, when I had I was in a coma and the whole lot, and had a big facial surgery from a car crash, car crash. Yeah, yeah, I remember coming off the ketamine it was like, from what I know of it, you have that DMT drip from your pineal gland. I don't know if this is horseshit, Scotty, but apparently when you dream, that's what gives you these wacky dreams that you're not really in control of. They're your dreams, but they just go for wherever they want. Yep. That was a lot like the last half an hour of waking up from this 6-hour surgery.
Yep.
I knew where I was, and it was a familiar feeling. I was in a dream, and I thought they planted me as an extra in the movie.
There you go.
That was Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Yep.
And there was octopus arms and chocolate flowing everywhere. Yep. But I was a sane mind going, those bastards. They've put me
it's just there.
as an extra in a movie when I'm in a hospital bed.
Oh, I've seen it firsthand. In the hospital up at the Gold Coast University, they've got a room where they take the kids into, or anyone with like a major fracture. But this is my personal experience was a fractured ulnar and radius, which was open, which was sticking out of the arm. Wow. Can thank some of the trampoline factories, which do a bloody good job for that, and they do help very well. But just some people just don't know how to land.
Yeah, right.
It's great on a Thursday night. They have a big power session up there, so I'll go up to the hospital on a Thursday and see a bit of that stuff, which is good. But they'll give some of these kids ketamine just to really so they can get in and get stuck into their arm, and then they turn the lights down and there's glow stars on the roof, and they bring on that state and they go, check out the fairies on the roof, have a look at this, and they bring on that hallucinogenic state with the ketamine and also coerce them into it. And, mate, they'll be ripping their arms around. That's actually old treatment. There's even a newer version of that now.
Wow, so
where they cuff the arm and they don't have to induce your whole body. They just induce the actual local area after putting a pressure cuff and put a drug in that which you can't feel anything in your arm without doing nerve blocks or anything. So you still are because they had to do face surgery with me. Coherent, my eyes were closed. It was something they took my face off. It was one of those big ones. Yeah, it's a not only is it a hallucinogenic drug, but in a major car accident or a major scenario like that, it actually is an amnesia drug as well. So it actually makes you forget what happened in that state, which is bloody good if they're ripping your legs out of a car. Yeah, they'll give it to you to extract you from a car or do an operation if they need you in a conscious, semi-conscious state.
Well, I remember they had the instruments on my chest. This is exactly what happened. Actually, they put it on me because I had to wait. I was in a coma for almost a week, induced coma.
Yep.
And then had to wait my turn at the hospital in ICU to have this big surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And then so I knew it was going to happen. Everyone knew it was going to happen. I had this made a lot of face swelling.
Oh, yeah.
So I think I had to wait for this face swelling to come down a bit for them to do the thing. Anyway, so I knew what was going on. Everyone knew what was going on. When it came, okay, Drew, wheel me into the place. I went under. But I remember going, I can still feel this thing on my chest. And I actually made a movement like, oh. They went, oh, he's still not under. Like there was...
Yeah.
And they had to give me more, and then I was gone.
Yeah.
But that's interesting for me to hear because... that meant, yes, I'm not under enough.
There's levels of... And, ketamine is one drug that's used.
I could feel my face being moved too, but not any pain.
Oh, there's a whole host of cocktails. Like the anaesthetists, have a broad range of drugs that cater for certain needs. They're using, fentanyl or a chemical version of morphine. There's all these different levels that they can work on you with and emergency services, but primarily I suppose it's all in aid of or all aimed at trying to get you to a point where they can bring levels of conscious state in and out. Like there's 13 levels of a conscious state, and then, you know, getting someone to a point where they can operate on you, you don't need to be completely under. And in some cases, it's an advantage to keep someone awake, like particularly if they're poking around with your face, or how does, you know, and looking how your eyes move, and, you know, open brain surgery where they'll be playing around with a certain part of your brain, removing tumours, and make sure that's not affecting an arm, or squeeze here, you know, so it's really, it's...
Imagine the test, I mean, the people they've gone through to get to this.
It's so well versed. And the
13
guys...
levels, you reckon?
Yeah, 13. Well, the GCS, Glasgow Coma Score, will rate generally conscious levels, you know, up to 13 or 15, but 3 is sort of minimum. So, you know,
Is there anyone that doesn't think of the anaesthetist as one for you, one for me?
Oh, mate, I remember. A
little bit for you. Keep this one in the back.
They're probably pretty well trained in that area, I'd say. But I remember an anaesthetist that worked on my wife when she was having a cesarean, and he gave her an epidural. This was like 12:55 at night, and he came in, and his pupils were like dinner plates.
Wow! And
I was thinking, mate, this guy can see noise.
Right.
He was that wired, and I'm going, that's probably going to work to our advantage. He's going to be able to be so tweaky. But, you know, like caffeine and those sorts of things, like the footy players all use, you know, you look at how coke's been used in the past. A lot of it does come from cocaine. It's a derogative of cocaine, really? A lot of these drugs.
Wow.
Opiates, you know.
Actually, there was a question I was going to ask you. Going back to running.
I'm not a drug expert, by the way, either.
No, but isn't it interesting? Like, with medicine, like, it's the root of everything. Like, you know, how to work on someone, you have to have drugs to
get them to comply.
Yeah. Which goes back to my... who was I talking to the other day? I cannot remember. But we were talking about still knocks.
Okay.
And how runners and athletes, and it was very, very common for, you know, Commonwealth Games athletes or Olympics, they all got into... Because everyone knows if you've got a big event, whatever the event is... The chance of you having a great night's sleep is really slim because you're so much going on in your brain keeping you awake.
Yeah.
If you're lucky enough to... I've never done it. Everything that's been important to me, I tend to go, and have a bad night's sleep.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, Kokoda and yourself, like, is there something good that everyone takes or...
Okay. So my personal view on that is, and because I was coached by in the younger days, I represented Queensland and ran in teams with Kathy Freeman and over 8 and 1500 metres, and I was lucky enough to be coached by a couple of great, you know, Australian coaches. Pat Clahessy was one of them, one of the original AIS guys down there with Dick Telford. But I think. From early days, you know, the common census was if there was a big race the next day, then you probably weren't going to get a good night's sleep the night before, and they'd pretty much worked out that it didn't matter. Okay. As long as you had a good week leading up to it of sleep and your training sort of, you know, you'd tape it a bit, but ultimately the night before really didn't make a big difference at the end of the day. So I think more so, you know, being in a relaxed state going into those situations as much as you can. And obviously experience is going to play a big part in that, to be able to relax, you know, in those stressful environments. But, yeah, I haven't heard of the still knock scenario. Like, I think sleeping the night before is you just get what you can, and effectively you've had pretty good sleep. And, you know, I could prove that. We run a race, you know, I've run a race for nearly 30 years called the 500k Endeavour Relay, which a local team on the coast here runs, but... out through Bow Desert, and we raise money for the Endeavour Foundation, which is now no longer a race. It finished up last year, but it's over 3 days, and it runs 500 kilometres, and there's 20 people in the team. And with that particular event, if you don't get a good night's sleep on one of those nights, you come out after being completely bashed from racing 2 or 3 times a day before, and your times, for example, over 5,000 metres or 5 kilometres on the road would only be a couple of seconds slower than your original race pace. Okay. So, you know, I think...
So the machine can still work, but you might be feeling delirium.
I think psychologically it probably blows you up more than anything. Okay. Physiologically, your body can handle a bucket load if it's trained to do so. And I mean in any aspect. Like, I catch up with guys that drink heaps of piss, and